wanted to tell you first about something that Yosef Bechor Shor says, the beginning of Parashat Shmos. He says, the Mitzvah enslaved Bnei Yisrael. Where they come to enslave them. So he says, because Yosef enslaved all the Mitzvah. The end of Parashat Vayigash. They were all Avadim Lepare. As the pasuk says. So they were all Avadim Lepare. So they said to the Bnei Yisrael, you too should be Avadim. That's what Yosef Bechor Shor says. Which basically means that the cycle is complete. Yosef, as we've discussed, is the Adonai Haaretz, is the Adonim Koshiv of Mitzrayim. That his leadership, premonition, or is it really the catalyst for the downfall of Mitzrayim, as it says in Yeshaya Perek Yutes. The downfall of Mitzrayim, whose Chachamim can never predict the future, they never know what's coming, only Hashem knows, which is of course parallels to Parashas Miketz, and many other parallels there, which we don't have to review. But the point is that the beginning of that parak says Mitzrayim is going to be handed over to Adonim Kasha, and that's the beginning of the end for them. Similarly, Yosef speaks Kasha, and institutes a draconian economic policy over complete slavery over the Egyptians, which we discussed that. He's being very mitzri in that way, and working on behalf of Pari, and almost faults him for that, for taking advantage of the downtrodden when there's a hunger, and consolidating all the power to Pari. And that leads then to Avodah Kasha, and then, like Yosef speaks Kasha, Pari is hard on the actual slave Pari, and that's his problem. If Pari would have a soft heart, everything would be fine. He would have survived. And then eventually, the last time when his heart is hardened, he's taken out to the Yam Suf, where he's swept away in a ruach by a ruach kadem aza, and it pours the water. So, yes, it was ruach kadem, the ruach kasha b'yoyim kadim, and he's the adonim kasha and the melech az, and Pari is Maksha's slave, and therefore gets what he deserves, which is ruach kadem aza. Okay, and that's all because of he imposes Avodah Kasha on Bnei Yisrael, which was inspired by Yosef's Kashrus, his leadership of Kashrus. Okay, pasuk test. Vayizko Yosef as החלומות אשר חלם להם ויאמר להם רגלתם לארץ ארבע ארץ בוסם. So I want to go further into what we discussed last time. We said in the last year that Yosef. Oh, so Shalom, you weren't here. So let me tell you the main nekuda. Basically, the point was that the idea will be familiar to you from other shiur. Basically, the point was that they want to see Mitzrayim exposed. They want to see Mitzrayim exposed, meaning bare of its grain, bare of its crops, its erbas haaretz, and they're very interested in seeing Mitzrayim exposed because then Mitzrayim is like Eretz Yisrael, which is what they want. So when Yosef charged them with being spies who were coming to the Eretz Haaretz, he's basically telling them the same way when Avram went down to Mitzrayim, it was because Mitzrayim has a potential of being like Eretz Yisrael, but it didn't quite work out in the story of Avram. So he retreated to Eretz Canaan and he made that into the Holy Land temporarily until eventually the whole world would become Kadosh like Eretz Yisrael, as we discussed. So you're coming to Mitzrayim also. You very much want Mitzrayim to be bare and exposed, meaning you want Mitzrayim to not survive, to not have the grain that it needs to survive thereof, and thereby Eretz Mitzrayim will be like Eretz Canaan, and you won't be in Galus. Instead, you'll be in Eretz Canaan, because the difference in Eretz Mitzrayim and Eretz Canaan is that Eretz Mitzrayim is protected from Rav. And you are very interested in seeing Mitzrayim bare and exposed and naked, which would mean that they're, like in the literal sense, the greenery is stripped away, and then there's no grain, and they're susceptible to hunger. And that's from my perspective, says Yosef, my job is to keep Mitzrayim safe and secure. So that's ervas aretz from my perspective, even though from the Shvatim's perspective, that's what makes an aretz HaTova, the fact that it could be exposed. But from Yosef's perspective, who's working in the opposite direction, that he calls that ervas aretz. He's like, basically, you're trying to make your spies literally. So it's a very good argument. You guys are pro Eretz Canaan, and as far as you're concerned, you would love to see nothing less than this place become like Canaan, a wasteland like Canaan could potentially be, and is currently right now, because there's Vahim Shema is an effect in Canaan, and look, there's a Rav. And you would love, which is of course a major threat to Yosef himself, as we will soon explore further, that Yosef himself, his job is to do the opposite, or his position that he put himself in was to preserve Mitzrayim's distinction from the land of Canaan and guarantee the Shalom Parah, right?
But is that because he believes that it is where it should be, or is that just the position he's put himself in?
Well, he believes that it's a good thing that there should be bad things, right? I mean, it's,
okay.
as we discussed, there's no other way to say it. Okay.
Right.
Now, if you look at Amos, so here it starts by Yizkor Yosef Sachalot, right? Okay. You remember the dreams, and then here's what he's going to do. So if you look at Amos, Parak Ches, of course, where it should be. So just to remind you, there Amos talks about the people that corner the market and stockpile the grain until people get really hungry, and then they could really charge what they want for it. And also the people that sold the poor for shoes. So these are the great sin of the brothers is that they sold Yosef, and the great sin of Yosef is that he passes on this abuse to the impoverished Egyptians. And then Pasuk Zayin says, so this is almost Perek Ches, Pasuk Zayin, Nishba Hashem b'goyin Yaakov eshkach l'netzach kol ma'aseyim. So Hashem swears that he won't forget. We spoke about this in the past. But Vayizkor Yosef es hachalomis, okay, the Shvatim sold him, and he is now engaged in a similar kind of abuse of people who are downtrodden and dependent on him. And it will not be forgotten forever. So Vayizkor Yosef es hachalomis, here it says it won't be forgotten, okay? And what won't be forgotten? So the next pasuk says that the Aretz is going to be angry, maybe? No, maybe that's the wrong translation. But upon him, the pasuk says that the Aretz is going to become muddy like the river of Mitzrayim. Okay, and we spoke about this in the past, that Mitzrayim is often called this muddy place. In other words, the fact that the river overflows its banks, and the river could be wet and muddy, fine, but the Aretz is supposed to be dry. But no, Mitzrayim's Aretz gets muddy like its river, which means Mitzrayim and its river are inseparable.
It's also literal mud because because the Nile also carries a lot of silt.
Right, the silt, exactly.
Which renews the land.
Right. But the point is, the imagery of the land becoming muddy means like, oh look, it's a corrupted land. It's a bad land, right? Now, what do you mean? It's actually the best thing for Mitzrayim that the river overflows and the land becomes muddy. But the pasuk is using this to show that the Aretz is corrupt. So now Yosef is preserving. In this case, the river did not overflow, right? So Mitzrayim finally had this possibility to become like Eretz Canaan, dry land. And from Navi's perspective, that's not muddy land. That's the quality kind of land, right? That's the land that's not rogaz and oval. But Lemaisa, Yosef is preserving in response to the brothers, right? By Yizkor Yosef as Chalamis, in response to them, he is becoming a Mitzri. Or he's acting like a Mitzri, and he's making Mitzrayim the equivalent of a land that the river does come up and overflow and make it muddy, right? Muddy, again, metaphorically, muddy means it's a bad country. Why is it a bad country? Because Mitzrayim. Who kept it like Mitzrayim? Yosef. When he remembered their dreams, he's insisting, no, I'm going to treat you like outsiders. I'm not going to let you bring your Eretz Canaan Mahalach over here. You guys sold me. I'm abusing everything. Nothing gets forgotten. And if you look in Yirmiyah Perek Mavav, we mentioned this pasuk once too. But Yirmiyah Perek Mavav talks about this thing of the river overflowing and overflowing onto the earth. Perek Mavav pasuk Zayin and Ches. Mize kayor ya'aleh kanahoris iska ashumemav Mitzrayim kayor ya'aleh. So Mitzrayim is talking about an army from Mitzrayim coming up like a river and saying a'aleh achase eretz. Achase eretz, right? So they want to see the ervas eretz. Now we have another meaning in ervas eretz. They want to see the land exposed without the river coming up and being mechaset. And Yosef is saying, I'm not on your side. Why? Because I remember what you did. I remember how awful you are. As the pasuk says in Amos, Eshkach lo netzach kol ma'aseihem. And therefore I am going to keep my distance from you and do things mitzridik, which is ala chasa eretz, not let you see the eretz eretz. In fact, use the might of the Ya'ar, which didn't overflow in these 7 years, but overflowed the last 7 years, and I'm going to use the extra. Okay. If you look at Amos, also take a look at Amos Perek Tes. There it says.
You know that the river contributes to the corruption of Mitzrayim in a direct way, also if it's worshipped.
Right, but it's all the same thing. I mean, it's worshipped because it's dependable. They consider it their strongest thing, the most absolute truth. Yeah. In Amos Perek Tes, it says also they have the same pasuk. Perek Tes pasuk the same thing about the river coming up. But also kayar kula v'shaka ki Mitzrayim. And there, the pasuk prior to that says v'samti eini aleihim l'ra'a v'leila toiva. In Amos Perek Tes pasuk down v'samti eini aleihim l'ra'a v'leila toiva. So this is reminiscent of Yehuda's argument to Yosef that you said bring Binyamin v'asima eini alav, and the famous medrash chizu hisimas ayin. Like samti eini alav, you should take a look at it. But no, v'samti eini l'ra'a v'leila toiva. Okay. Now, if you look in Amos, go back to Perek Tes. So there it says Hashem's not going to forget forever, right? That's pasuk Zayin in Perek Tes. Hashem will not forget. Pasuk Tes talks about the river is going to overflow and muddy things. Okay, and here's again, as we explained, Yosef is saying, "I didn't forget. I will not let you have the arts be exposed." And then look at pasuk Tes. So next thing it says in Amos is that the sun is going to set in midday, and the arts is going to become dark. Now, it's also reminiscent of the dreams, right? Because the dreams are about the Shemesh and the Yerech. So let's go back a little bit to the dreams. In Parshas Vayeshev. In Parshas Vayeshev, it says, the dream was, as we all know, Shemesh Yerech v'echad asokecha v'mishtachavim li. And his father said to him, Havoy navoy, ani v'imcha v'achecha l'shtachav v'slecha arza. Arza. So note that word arza, right? Arza brings us to Yosef hu hashalat al haaretz, hu hamashbel l'chol ha'aretz, v'yevoy l'choshtachadoi arza. The whole focus on the aretz. Okay. Now we spoke in Parshas Vayeshev. We said the following: if the Shemesh and Yerech and the 11 stars represent various members of his family, so who's Yosef? Who's Li? Or what's Yosef rather? Yaakov, right? Yaakov is the Shemesh. Rachel is the Yerech. 11 stars, 11 come. So what is Yosef represented by? The aretz. So he's the Aretz. He is the Aretz, and all the luminaries bow to the Aretz, which, as we're going to soon see now, I don't know if we said this then, it means that they set. The Tzva Shemayim L'chol Mishtachavim, Chazal says, but they set. So Mishtachavim Li means, look, all the luminaries, all the lights in the heavens, they bow to the Aretz, as in I guess it means they revolve around the Aretz, and the Aretz, sometimes, and this is a key point we'll see soon, I'm jumping ahead a little bit, but the point is that the Aretz experiences the luminary setting, right? That's Shemesh Yerech Mishtachavim Li means, look, if you're the Aretz, you have to realize you have all these lights, but they're always setting. Okay, now.
Well, they also rise.
Yeah, but he dreamt about them setting. It's very important. 1 second, very important. Now, what do the Shvatim hold about the Aretz? The Shvatim hold about the Aretz, as it says in Yirmiyah Perek Kov Gimel, God is not far, God is near, you have to be a Navi. Haloyes Hashemayim v'es Aretz ani moleh. And what Yirmiyah says in Perek Kov Gimel is don't mix Teven and Bar, don't mix Dvarim and Chaloimis, meaning be a Navi. Be a Navi, so it says in Yirmiyah Perek Kov Gimel, be a Navi, Pasuk Perek Kov Gimel, Pasuk Kov Dalet, because, why should he be a Navi? Because Hashem fills Shamayim and Aretz, no Hashem. He's not Mikarev, he's not only Mikarev and not Merachik. Contra what it says in Keheles, which is Elikim B'Shamayim Bato Al Haaretz. That's what Yosef Shita is. That Hashem does not fill Shamayim and Aretz. He's in the Shamayim and you're on the Aretz. Akeni Yudvecha Ma'atim, and then B'Ach Aloim B'Rev Inyan. So Yosef is a dreamer because he holds Hashem is not accessible on the Aretz. Hashem is in the Shamayim. So what should I do? I could have dreams. The Navi says no. Hashem will bring himself to the Aretz and he'll speak to him too. Right? So Yosef holds like this. Now, one more thing. Take a look at Micha Perek Gimel. Again, we saw this pasuk in Amos about the sun's going to set, right? I'll make the sun set on you. But if you look at Micha Perek Gimel, which is also all about Yosef, Micha Perek Gimel begins Shimuna Rashi Beis Yaakov, and Yosef said to the brothers Shimuna Chalom Azeh Asher Chalamti. And that's the Medrash says that Shimuna, Yosef's telling them, the Navi one day is going to tell you Shimuna. And the Shimuna in Micha Perek Gimel is don't strip the poor people's skin off them and consume them like you did to Yosef. Hashem's going to hide from you if you do that. Okay? Look at Pasuk Vav. It's going to become dark and you're not going to have Chazayin, Uba Hashemesh al Hanavim. So the message of the sun setting, and then we look at Pasuk Zayin, the message of the sun setting is that the sun will set on the Nevi'im. The Nevi'im will not have vision. So the dream of the sun and the moon and the stars setting is a dream about darkness, and the fact that the Oretz experiences all these luminaries setting means that the Oretz is a dark place. You guys claim that Hashemayim v'sa'aretz animole, and the light of the heavens always illuminates the earth, right? So to speak. Yosef says, look, my dream was that the Oretz actually experiences darkness because every single luminary sets. Now, Ayyukatayim is never a time where it's completely dark, so we have to figure that out. I mean, he had a dream that everything set at the same time. You know, normally the Shemesh sets
and then the
Yerech at a different time. All of a sudden, everything's setting at the same time. So his dream was, Elikim Hashemayim atal Oretz, and therefore what? Therefore, you're in control of the Oretz. Meaning, the reason why Yosef is identified with the Oretz, I think, follows because in as much as the Oretz is a lonely place where Hashem doesn't connect, well, then who's in charge of the Oretz? Man, Yosef. You need a man who can step up to the position of Oretz, like it says over there in Mitzrayim. Yeah, but in Mitzrayim, Yosef Hashalt al Oretz, who Mashbech al Amot, Shtech al Oretz, because he's the one that says, look, Hashem, Oretz nasan l'bnei Adam, and finished. And I'm the Ben Adam who's going to take over the Oretz. Because someone has to do it. We're in the dark. And then the Shvatim abuse him for that, and the Taka end up being in the dark, right? That's what it says in Micha. The Nevi'im are going to be in the dark. The sun is going to set on the Nevi'im. Why? Because you think you're such a Nevi'im, you're such a tzaddikim, but look at you, Yosef. L'chein laila, l'chein miksoy, etc., right? So now...
They don't have the Nevuah.
They don't have the Nevuah. So in other words, the way they responded to Yosef's dream about darkness brought the darkness upon themselves. So you have to figure out what could have been, what should have been, right, but the fact is Yosef's dream about darkness was a self-fulfilling prophecy because when his brothers heard this, they started abusing him. They become the dark, and Yosef's sense of the darkness to come is confirmed. Right? Okay? So now basically they say there's no such thing as night, and he's anticipating this idea of night. Vayizko Yosef as a chaloimis, as it says in Almois, it was not forgotten Lanetzach. And what's not forgotten Lanetzach? This dream about darkness, and in fact, the Nevi'im are going to be in darkness. Okay, so just the point is that what I'm trying to bring out is Vayizko Yosef as a chaloimis. This corresponds to that pasuk in Almois. It's not forgotten, and what's not forgotten is firstly because he remembers the dreams, therefore he insists Erev Arts Basam Liris, and I'm going to protect the Erev Arts from you guys who have a different opinion about the Yer Mitzrayim than I do. And I am going to, I remember that there's dreams about darkness on the Nevi'im, and I'm bringing that sun down on you right now. I'm going to make you not know what's flying here, not be able to understand what's happening, as the dreams predicted, as it says in Almois. That's what you deserve because of what you did to me. Right? So that's Asher Cholam Lohem. You dreamt something about that. Now I want to talk about another aspect of the dream. The first dream was Now, we spoke about this then, that there's only one other place in Tanakh where we have Alumais. I think Rashi points this out there in the beginning of Vayeshev. And that's Shea Malz Moshe Hashem L'Shivas Tzion. Okay, so return to Tzion. Baya Vayberina, Noise Aluboisav. They come in happiness. So you do hard work, but eventually it pays off, and you have the alumais, and you plant the dibba, but eventually you have rina, and you carry the alumais. There it says boy navai berina noisi alumaisav, and by the dream of Yosef it says havoi navai, and of course hayinu kecholmim. So Yosef has a chaloim about alumais, and they say havoi navai, and Ma'aseh it says boy navai berina noisi alumaisav. But the chayot's mamish the opposite. Because they came to Yosef to Golus. And the Tehillim talks about Shivas Tzion. Shivas Tzion is Kecholmim and Bayavai Berina Neis Elamaisav, right? But the truth is...
It doesn't say Nava, it says Yavai.
I know, but that's good enough for me.
So maybe that's the point.
Why?
They're coming to Mitzrayim. That's Navai. That's not Yavai. Yavai Berina is when he comes back.
Okay, but the question is though, if the correspondence is between their response to Yosef's dream was, will we come down to Mitzrayim? And okay, so what's the answer? I mean, really the Alumis and the Chaloimis indicate the happiness of after all the hard work is done and now you have a product.
Mm-hmm.
That's what it indicates, and that's what corresponds to Shivas Tzion. And then here, but in this story, it's the Boinav Shtachel Zachar Arza is to Mitzrayim. But it's as we've been discussing that actually they want to go to so they don't want to go to Mitzrayim. They don't want to go to Galus. That's the whole point. Havai Navai, the Shtachel Zachar Arza, they want to be Bayavai Berina. No, they want to come to Mitzrayim and say, oh look, finally there's a Rav in Mitzrayim. So Mitzrayim is like Eretz Yisrael. Okay, remember, all we care about is to Mikadosh the whole world, bring Mashiach and make the whole world Eretz Yisrael. That's all we care about. So when we go to Galus, basically what it means is like this. When we go to Galus, here's another way to state it. When we go to Galus, what do we want? Do we want Be'etzim that the Eretz Yisrael should be like Eretz Yisrael? Eventually that's what we want. And is it necessary that in the interim Galus should be dafka for catchwords? Okay, this is a very interesting question. Yeah. In as much as eventually, right, that's basically what's happening with Yosef is very pro Galus as different than Eretz Yisrael. And they come and they say, Erev Ha'aretz, as he says to them, Erev Ha'aretz, what do you want? You're not interested in Mitzrayim. Your whole life you're talking about Nevuah. Elamai, you have to come here, so you want to make this the Tabak of Nevuah. So from my perspective, that's Erev Ha'aretz, because I want to protect Mitzrayim and make it Mitzrayim, Shalom Parah. They want to be Bayavai Berina Neis Elamaisav. Okay? And not by Habai Navai Shtachel Zachar Arza, because as far as I'm concerned, they should go to Mitzrayim. If we're going to go to Mitzrayim, we're going to make it Eretz Yisrael. That's why we're going to go to Mitzrayim. We're not going to go to Mitzrayim and suffer. Now, more than that, what happens in the beginning of Vayeshev? They tell Yosef, don't mix Chalomis with Dvarim. Right? What does it say in Yirmiyah about that? In that parak, Perchav Gimel in Yirmiyah? Don't mix Tevin and Bar. Mala Tevin as a Bar. Right? Hanavi asher ito chaloim yisaper chaloim v'asher dvari ito yisaper dvari emes mala tevel es habar l'mashem. I didn't say the pasuk exactly right, but that's basically the pasuk. Hanavi asher ito chaloim yisaper chaloim v'asher dvari ito yisaper dvari emes mala tevel es habar l'mashem. Okay, maybe I got it right. So don't mix tevin and bar. And they hated Yosef for mixing chaloimis and tavarim, which is like mixing tevin and bar. What that means is like this: everyone wants bar. No one wants Tevin. They went down to Mitzrayim for Bar. They ended up getting Tevin too. And that's again the Parashat Shmos, right? Mm-hmm. The whole Shibud Mitzrayim. What's the grace of Shibud Mitzrayim? By Yofetz on the Koshish Kashal Tevin. So we went down Mitzrayim for Bar and we ended up mixing Tevin. They want the Bar without the Tevin. And by the way, what it says in Amos, the real Rav is the Rav of the Dvar Hashem, which is right. So they want the Lechem, which is the Dvar Hashem, without the Bar, which is Chalomis. Yosef, the alumos is when we're happy, we did our work, and now we're going to enjoy it. Yosef Lamaisa is going to make this happen through a chaloim, which means he's going to make it happen through Mitzrayim as a place of shibud, as a place of tevin. In other words, they want, if we're going to Mitzrayim, we're going to go, we'll find the Dvar Hashem in Mitzrayim. We're not interested in suffering in Mitzrayim, we're not interested in the tevin. The same way they're not interested in Yosef being a dreamer, which means they're not interested in Galus being a place of Galus. They're interested in going to Galus as we mark Eretz Yisrael to there. But we're not going to go there and suffer. Right. We're not going to be cholim. We're not going to have tevin. So by Yizko Yosef, and we were going to be Bayavai Berina. We're not going to be Bayavai Shtachel Zachar Arza. Not interested. So the dream of the Alumim, by Yizko Yosef as a chaloimis, the dream of the Alumim is that Asher Cholam Lahem is that they want to be Bayavai Berina.
His dream that they won't be.
No, I think Cholam Lahem was like this. It was a very weird thing, because on the one hand, he had a dream. A dream indicates suffering.
Right.
And Tevin. On the other hand, the dream was about Bar. So right away he mixed Tevin and Bar, right? But what did they want from the dream? Asher Cholam Lahem. What was their role in the dream? Just Bar. That was their role. So by dreaming that his brothers were Suben al-Moisai, what he's dreaming is that the brothers, Yosef had two aspects. Yosef had the dream, and he dreamt about bar. The brothers only appeared related to bar. So cholam lahem was that they want bar, and Yosef was like, you're not getting bar without teven, I refuse. Meraglim atem, I'm going to make your life miserable. But they want this bar without teven, which means they want Mitzrayim to not be a place of suffering. Which means it will not be a place of galus per se. Okay. So that's Chalomas Asher Cholam Lohem. Now, we also said that Yosef is the Aretz, right?
Yeah, because he represents.
He's not connected to the heavens, right?
Right.
And here he dresses up like a Mitzri, he's Misnaker, he becomes basically a Mitzri, bona fide Mitzri. Which then suggests that what's the Ervas Aretz? The Ervas Aretz is the Yosef's Milo. Right? It's the Ervas Aretz.
You wanted to see, you wanted to show me.
You're going to expose me for who I am. Here he is pretending he's a Mitzri.
But he did it.
And he did it despite the fact that he's an Ivri, but he had to overcome that, and he had to sever himself from his Ivri past, right?
Yeah, but doesn't the Chazal say that he performed Mila on it? He had them perform Mila on every mitzvah.
I don't know. That's a big kasha, because the fact is, it says when he told the Shvatim who he was, I showed them the Mila. So they asked the kasha there. I made every mitzvah up. But the fact is that Yosef being Gemalit is the siman that he's not a mitzvah, right? So, and they're here, and he says, you're threatening my whole enterprise. You're coming to see Arizarts, that's his Mila, and you're going to expose me for the Jew that I am. And I don't want to be a Jew. I'm trying to be a Mitzri. I'm trying to do something very different. Mm-hmm. He's afraid that basically they're a major threat to him, to his whole project here. And the fact is that what happened when Yaakov came down to Mitzrayim, and he brought the new way to end the Rav, which is and also the Rav ended 5 years early, and Yosef was exposed as not being the smartest guy in the room, because Yosef's Pisrin, that was Maralikim La'asoisoi and Ein Novin Chacham Kamoicha, the Maisa, as the Navi says, Ein Novin and Ein Chacham, and that was proven when Yaakov came and said, I have a much better way. Well, Davin, and everything's going to be fine. So basically, that's the Eretz Haaretz.
He's missing 5 years.
You're missing 5 what? Of Yosef's interpretation. So that's the Eretz Haaretz is Yosef's shame. Yosef is worried about protecting himself, because here I set up this whole mahalach, where I'm going to do a mitzvah thing for them. And everyone's going to be so excited because I'm the best mitzvah possible. The best mitzvah possible is the worst year, whatever. I don't know, it's the best, I'm going to be worse. I'm saying, I'm going to be the best mitzvah possible, and you guys are going to come and you're going to blow up this whole mahalach.
This is a very clever mitzvah system, because you can invent insurance.
Yeah, and you're going to come and say, we don't need insurance, because we have rights to Shem. And as far as I'm concerned, that's Eretz Haaretz, because you're exposing me, and he's the Aretz.
And he's exposing him.
And
his erva
is the right. The great expose is if they reveal that he's Gemalit. I'm not saying it's a secret that he's Gemalit, but the point is he hid himself and he dressed up as a mitzvah. Right. And now
you're going to emphasize it.
Yeah, and that's how he's going to reveal himself. And he doesn't want to reveal himself before the time. In fact, this we have to learn. In fact, Kobe didn't want to reveal himself 2 years later, whatever. At the end of the 2 years, but something went wrong. We're not sure exactly how that's going to play out, but clearly it wasn't. We don't know exactly yet what Yosef's plan was. It could be Hitaka needed, or he wanted that it shouldn't. His 7-year plan should be fulfilled, right?
And then it would be time for.
And of course, what's it called? How did it go?
Or maybe not.
The Rav in Mitzrayim was cut short, and they had to be paid up for, right?
Yeah.
It says in Sefer Yechezkel that there was a Rav in Mitzrayim for 40 years, and it's clearly associated with Miketz. And Chazal say there it says Miketz. And Chazal say that really Mitzrayim is supposed to have a 42-year hunger, because it's 6 groups of 7 and the repetition of the dream and so on. But then it was cut short. Anyways, Akapanim, the point is that Yosef doesn't want them to make this into a holy land, and the whole Yosef's position depends on him being identified with Mitzrayim and not being exposed. Meaning, again, I don't mean exposed that was necessarily a secret, but not being shown that, like, come on, you should really be one of the Bnei Yisrael. And that also then, just puts into sharper focus. When they answered, they said Bnei Ish Echad Nachnu, which many read as a remez. Oh, they're talking to Yosef saying we're all the sons of one man. It's like a remez. You're also a son of him. Not that they knew that, but it's like Niba v'lo yoda b'niba. But that's of course the greatest threat to Yosef. And he says, no, you guys are meraglim. That is the biggest threat to Yosef, that he's going to be united with them. That's exactly what he's looking to avoid, is that he's going to be treated as one of them.
Even when he reveals himself, but he says, "But I'm still, but Binyamin and I are still different from the rest of you because it's not about mothers, fathers. It's about mothers."
What do you mean here? Wait, what do you mean?
He treats Binyamin different.
Yeah. Oh, you mean, so this is Bnei Ish Echad. So you're saying right away the Bnei Ish Echad.
No, what about mothers?
So very good. I didn't realize that. Right. So the Kulana Bnei Ish Echad, not right. It's definitely something going on. They said we're all the same because we're from the same father. But Yosef is going to make a big deal of that. Whose mother? Right.
And his mother is the one who gave the Nachesh Ish Asher Kamaini.
Yeah. So what? You mean so
it's
different?
We do different.
Right. Very good. Very true. And it was never.
That's the dreams.
Yeah, it's very true. Right. There's a focus about what the mother is, what the father is. Also good. So let's just read those psukim. They insist that this is about food and that they are subservient to him and they're not trying to change anything. Kulanu b'nei ish echad nachnu. I just want to say something about that vav. What's that vav? So some read it, Radak and Rashi, rather. It's like rather. Lo yadani rather. And Rabban Rambam says, it's very interesting, Yesod, that some of the Rishonim held of, that in Lashon HaKodesh you could sometimes use a vav just to start a sentence, even not connected to something else or not meaning va. It's a question about what's called what? Yeah. And Sefer Ezra starts with the vav. Is it connected to something? Is it Ezra? Kapanim, there's a big question about that, whether vav always has to mean something or it's just a way to begin something. We're from Rambam and others. If you're from Rambam says on this pasuk that it's just the beginning of a sentence and it serves as that function, and there are other places where he says the same thing. Like in Vayitin Lachaha Lekim B'Tal HaShamayim, he has one suggestion that's just a way of beginning a sentence. Akapadim, fine. Kulonu b'nei shechad nachnu, keinem anachnu loy hoyu avadechem raglim. So what is this? What shaykh is that they're all born from one man? So I just want to say what some of the Mepharshim say. They're telling like this: you think we're a task force, like a mission of 10 people here to spy. The reason why we're a group is because we're a family. Others say, maybe Ramban talks about this, that one man wouldn't send all his sons to be spies. It's dangerous. No one would endanger his whole family like that. So that's proof that they're not spies. And Rav Rambam says, very interesting, he says, if you look later, they told Yaakov, in Perek Mem Gimel, they said, why did you tell them you have a brother, right? And he says, because he asked us. He asked us all about our family. Where did that happen? Right. Doesn't say that. So Rav Rambam says, no, it happened, but the pasuk doesn't speak it out. It's so much on the fact that it says it later. It's like a midrash to the dreshets, right? That you have to put this. If there's a narrative that's sort of repeated, you have to put them together. So here it doesn't say Yosef asked them. There it says he asked them, but here it says they supplied the answer. Because the pasuk doesn't say, but Yosef, besides the time they were Raglim, he started asking them. He started interrogating them. Right.
That's also continuation. At some point in here, he's asking them.
Right. He said,
"Why did you come together?" Because we're brothers. So, oh yes, what's your family? What's your family like? So tell them his whole family.
Yeah, exactly. So a lot of questions. According to Rambam, this is an answer to a question. Really, they're telling him there's Meraglam Atam. They said lo yadon b'Eichel, but due to his great interrogation, because of his suspicions, they started asking other questions. So they answered them and said, "Okay, that's all for now. I leave you with this for Pesach." Okay, now we learned about Mitzrayim a lot. And we'll see you with Hashem after Pesach, a month.
You're going with Pesach?
No, but